When betrayal shatters a perfect life, one woman must unravel a web of lies and reclaim her future before the past destroys everything she holds dear. The night had an unusual stillness as Alara Collins stood at the edge of the grand ballroom watching the crowd gathered beneath the sparkling chandeliers. Her daughter Lila, radiant in her cap and gown, was about to cross the stage and embrace the future that Alara had sacrificed so much to provide. Alara's heart swelled with pride and a quiet hope that the years of compromise and endurance were finally bearing fruit. The murmurs of congratulations and clinking glasses filled the air but were suddenly silenced when Julian Harper, Alara's husband of nearly 30 years, raised his glass abruptly. His voice rang out not with praise, but with a chilling declaration that stopped everyone cold. "I've decided to leave this life behind starting today." The words echoed sharply, cutting through the warmth of the celebration. Guests froze, their expressions a mixture of shock and curiosity sweeping the room. Eyes darted between Julian and Alara, expecting outrage or tears. Instead, Alara met their gaze calmly, offering a serene smile that seemed to disarm the tension around her. Lila's eyes widened in disbelief, the joy on her face fading into a pale shadow. She clutched her diploma tightly, uncertain whether to cry or protest. Across the room, Cassie Monroe, Julian's much younger companion and the woman who had silently eroded the foundation of Alara's marriage, shifted uneasily, surrounded by longtime family friends who had long known but never spoken of the betrayal. Alara reached into her clutch and withdrew a cream-colored envelope, placing it carefully beside Julian's plate. His triumphant smile faltered as he met her steady eyes. "What's this?" he demanded, voice wavering. "Something to consider later," Alara replied, voice even and resolute. Turning to Lila, she brushed a soft kiss on her daughter's cheek. "This day belongs to you and your dreams." She straightened her posture and addressed the stunned guests. "Please enjoy the evening." With that, she slipped quietly out, leaving a trail of whispers in her wake. Outside, the humid summer night wrapped around Alara like a freeing embrace. For the first time in years, she breathed deeply, shedding the weight of silence and pretense behind her. The restaurant door slammed as Julian's frantic voice called out her name, a desperate plea lost to the warm night air. What Alara carried in that envelope was not just papers, but the culmination of months of quiet reckoning, months of tracing hidden accounts and late-night calls with lawyers, months of gathering proof, not only of infidelity, but of betrayal woven deeply into the fabric of their lives. While Julian dreamed recklessly, Alara had been the steady hand saving their family from collapse. She had shelved her own ambitions to build a consulting practice. After Lila graduated, she had balanced their books. When Julian chased fleeting passions from failed businesses to furniture crafting, he told her they needed to tighten belts, while his secret life flourished in hidden bank statements and whispered conversations. She had found texts filled with promises to a new life, a new love, carefully planned to coincide with Lila's graduation, a cruel timing that Julian believed would soften the blow. Yet Alara was always a step ahead, guided by 30 years of financial expertise and a prenuptial agreement Julian had insisted on years ago. Ironically, the clause meant to protect his wealth would now unravel everything he had schemed. Returning to their colonial home, Alara found the master bedroom closet packed with his neatly folded clothes, the quiet sign of his impending departure. She smiled at the predictability of his careful habits, unaware that her calm exterior masked a storm of resolve. Messages flooded her phone from friends and family, but Alara responded only to Lila, reassuring her that this day would remain hers alone. Their bond was her anchor, practical, yet fierce. Lila carried her mother's strength mixed with her father's charm, a blend that had guided her to this proud moment. Hours later, Julian arrived, breathless and angry, confronting Alara in their living room. The envelope in his hand trembled as he demanded explanations. Alara met his rage with cool clarity, exposing the lies and deceit that had built a shadow life around them. The fidelity clause, the frozen accounts, the betrayal, all unfolded like a calculated chess game where Alara held the winning hand. Their confrontation shattered years of carefully crafted facades, exposing the raw edges of a marriage built on illusions. Julian's desperate attempts to rewrite the story faltered against Alara's unwavering truth, their daughter watching from the sidelines, ready to face the harsh realities of a fractured family. The night stretched on with tense words and wounded hearts until finally Julian and Cassie left the house, their departure marking not just an end, but a new beginning for Lira and Lila. Bound by love, tested by betrayal, Lira knew the road ahead would be challenging but also filled with the promise of rediscovery and strength. At her sister-in-law Mara's home, Lira found refuge and a fierce ally. Together they raised glasses to resilience and fresh starts, their conversation weaving between past memories and future hopes. The preliminary hearing loomed like a storm on the horizon, but Lira faced it with the same steady resolve that had guided her through every trial. Her life was no longer defined by a husband's betrayal, but by the fierce independence she was finally claiming. The rain tapped steadily against the courthouse windows as Lira Collins sat beside her attorney in the sterile waiting room, her fingers loosely intertwined, her mind replaying every calculated move that had led to this day. The preliminary hearing was a battleground where the past and future would collide with consequences she could no longer avoid. Julian Harper arrived late, his usual confident facade replaced by a weariness that betrayed sleepless nights and mounting desperation. His lawyer, a young associate with little experience in family law, shuffled papers nervously. The stark contrast between the two men was striking, yet Lira remained composed, her calm a shield forged in years of endurance. The judge's sharp gaze pierced the courtroom as she examined the prenuptial agreement, the very document Julian had insisted upon all those years ago. The lawyer attempted to argue its expiration, but the judge's voice cut through his protests. This agreement holds for the duration of the marriage and all related legal proceedings. Her words landed like a verdict that echoed through the silent room. Evidence of hidden transfers and the lack of full financial disclosure sealed Julian's fate. For the moment, the judge ordered the freeze on joint accounts to remain intact and confirmed Lira's possession of their family home pending the full hearing. The weight of legal certainty settled over Julian as he sat rigid, a man stripped of illusions. Later in the courthouse hallway, Julian's voice was tinged with desperation. Lira, we can find a way to fix this. 28 years of marriage must mean something. His eyes searched hers for a flicker of old affection or mercy, but found only resolve. Those years meant everything until you chose betrayal, she replied, quietly stepping away from the man she once loved, leaving him to grapple alone with the consequences of his choices. News of the unfolding scandal spread quickly through their social circles. Calls came from friends, some with sympathy, others with thinly veiled curiosity. Lira offered nothing but dignified silence, choosing to protect Lila from the gossip that threatened to consume them. Meanwhile, Julian's carefully crafted life began to crumble. His promises to Cassie dissolved as she discovered the cracks in his financial facade. She moved out swiftly, the illusion of wealth and stability shattered, leaving Julian to face the reality he had long ignored. For Lira, the chaos sparked a rebirth. She rented a modest office downtown and began to build Caldwell Financial Transitions, a consultancy aimed at empowering women navigating life's upheavals. Her first clients were women who recognized in her story a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. Lila's calls were a balm for Lira's soul. The pride in her daughter's voice as she spoke of her new job and burgeoning independence reminded Lira of the life beyond the pain and betrayal. Their bond deepened, forged in shared resilience and understanding. Months passed, bringing small victories and renewed purpose. The final divorce hearing approached on a day that once would have marked an anniversary, now a symbol of endings and beginnings. The courtroom was filled with tension as the judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety, affirming Lira's rightful claim to their home, retirement funds, and majority of investments. Julian left with the remnants of his dignity and the reality of a struggling business. His departure was quiet, but heavy with regret. The judge's ruling was a poetic justice, the very protections he had demanded, now his undoing. Lira emerged from the courthouse with a quiet strength. The path ahead was uncertain, but hers to claim. No longer the wife defined by others, she was a woman reborn, ready to embrace the future on her own terms. The months following the courtroom battle were a mosaic of quiet victories and unexpected challenges. Lira Collins found herself navigating a world she had long set aside, the realm of independence, entrepreneurship, and self-discovery. The walls of her new office were lined with certificates and photos of the women she had helped, their faces a testament to resilience and hope. Lila's visits became more frequent each time, bringing news of her own blossoming career and dreams, yet beneath the surface lay the unspoken tensions, the fractured relationships that had reshaped their family. The past was a shadow that lingered, refusing to fully fade, but Lira faced it with a strength born of hard-won clarity. Julian Harper's presence was a distant echo, a chapter closed but never fully forgotten. He had retreated into the solitude of a modest apartment, the business ventures that once seemed so promising now reduced to fragments. His calls were sporadic, tinged with regret, and a longing. Lira met them with guarded civility, knowing some wounds were too deep for easy healing. Meanwhile, Cassie Monroe had vanished from their lives, a ghost who left behind whispers of betrayal and broken promises. The friends who had once entertained the illusion now viewed her with a mixture of pity and scorn. The social circles that had once revolved around Julian's charisma began to dissolve, leaving him isolated and stripped of pretense. Lira's consultancy flourished, her reputation as a fierce advocate for women's financial empowerment spreading steadily, her calendar filled with appointments, seminars, and speaking engagements. Yet beneath the professional success was a quiet yearning, a space where love had once dwelled. Then came the unexpected, a message from Adrian Foster, a man from her past, their youthful friendship rekindled through a chance encounter, stirring emotions Lira had thought long buried. Theirs was a connection built on shared histories and unspoken understanding, a fragile hope blossoming amid the ruins of betrayal. Their meetings were a delicate dance of vulnerability and restraint, each encounter peeling back layers of guarded hearts. Lira found in Adrian a mirror to her own strength and scars, a reminder that even in the aftermath of heartbreak, love could find a way. Yet shadows remained, the unresolved questions, the what-ifs, and the silent echoes of a life once lived. The scars of Julian's betrayal were etched deep in her soul, a reminder that trust was fragile and the cost of deceit steep. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of amber, Lira sat alone in her office, reflecting on the journey, the losses, and the gains. The envelope she had handed Julian at the graduation celebration was more than a symbol of revenge. It was the key to a door that had opened into a new life, one filled with pain but also possibility. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lila, their bond unwavering. "Mom, I'm proud of everything you've become. You're my hero." The words brought tears, a mix of sorrow and joy for the past they had survived and the future they were building. But as the night deepened, a shadow of unease crept in, a reminder that some battles were not yet over. The faint sound of footsteps outside her office window, a glimpse of a figure disappearing into the darkness, stirred a cold warning in her heart. Lira knew that the path ahead would demand more than strength. It would require courage, vigilance, and a readiness to face whatever secrets still lurked in the shadows. The story was far from over, and the next chapter awaited with promises and perils yet unseen. The chill in the autumn air was sharper than usual as Lira Collins walked briskly down the dimly lit streets toward her office. The city lights flickered like distant promises, but beneath the surface a current of unease tugged at her every step. The footsteps she had heard weeks before were no longer just echoes in the night. They had grown closer, more insistent. Inside her office, the shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the silence heavier. She checked the locks twice, then sank into her chair, the weight of the day pressing on her shoulders. Despite the successes, the empowerment, the new life she had carved from the ruins of betrayal, there was an unshakable feeling that something was coming. Her phone buzzed suddenly, a message from an unknown number. No words, only a single photo, a blurred image of Julian standing outside her office building, watching from the shadows. The message was a silent threat, a reminder that the past was never truly gone. Lira's heart raced, but she refused to show fear. She reached out to Adrian, who arrived quickly, his calm presence a balm to her frayed nerves. Together they reviewed security footage, noticing a figure who slipped away just before the camera caught sight. The realization settled hard. Julian was not finished. He was lurking in the periphery, waiting for an opening to strike back, not just at her, but at everything she had rebuilt. The carefully laid plans, the hard-won peace, were under siege. Days passed, filled with tense vigilance and whispered conversations. The past and present collided as old secrets threatened to unravel. The fragile new normal the people Lira had trusted were no longer just allies, but potential liabilities. A phone call from Mara warned of unexpected visitors at her home, old friends with new agendas. The story that had seemed to close with a judge's ruling was unfolding again like a dark symphony with new movements and deeper shadows. Lira and Adrian worked tirelessly piecing together clues, uncovering betrayals that reached beyond the private and into the public. Yet amid the storm there was light, the burgeoning love between Lira and Adrian, a steady flame. In the encroaching darkness, their shared strength a reminder that even in the harshest winters growth and hope could take root. One evening, as the first snow dusted the city, Lira stood at her office window watching the world transform. She thought of Lila, who was forging her own path, and of the woman. She had become stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. A knock at the door startled her. Adrian entered carrying an envelope similar to the one she had once handed Julian. His eyes held a mixture of triumph and concern. Inside were documents revealing a new layer of deception, not just from Julian, but from others she had considered trusted. The final pieces of a puzzle that promised to shatter illusions and bring justice in unexpected ways. The battle was far from over, but Lira was ready to face it head-on. Her journey was one of reinvention and reclaiming power, not just for herself, but for every woman who had been silenced or betrayed. The night closed around them like a curtain on one act, and an opening to the next. The future was uncertain, but it belonged to Lira Collins, and she would write her story with courage and unyielding resolve.